Welcoming everyone to another live edition of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin, riding solo, except for DK is in the background helping me out, thankfully. But no Jimbo today. He is traveling, so he'll be back with us in our next episode. But we do have a guest coming up today, so stick around. Excited to have this guy on. Been a long time coming, trying to get this gentleman to come on who certainly follows the team closer than pretty much anyone you'll find. So we're excited to have a new guest and fresh face on the show. But before we welcome him in, I did want to cover a couple things that happened in the last couple days in concerning the Ravens. The first issue I want to bring up is really kind of a bummer. It's a sad issue. What's going on, Gideon? Appreciate you coming out. Jamal, what's up, buddy? Appreciate you coming out. But the first bit of news is definitely bit somber. It's a bit sad here as a longtime offensive line coach here with the Baltimore Ravens, Joe DeLisandro, is dealing with some pretty tough health concerns right now. As you can see here, a statement released by the team says offensive line coach Joe D was hospitalized over the weekend for an acute illness, which will require ongoing treatment for an extended period of time. The hearts of the entire Ravens organization are with Joe D and his family, and we will continue to fully support them throughout his recovery. And also, John Harbaugh spoke to the media and was asked about this, of course, and he talked about, how loved Joe D is in the building, how, a guy who's been around for a long time, and he's loved from, not just the players, but the entire staff, the organization, the front office, everyone loves Joe D and is certainly wishing the best. Apparently he had a surgery at the beginning of summer. Not sure exactly what that surgery was, but these sounds like complications resulting from either the surgery or the whatever issue the surgery was going to repair or fix. But yeah, it's a big loss. Of course, like they said, the first and foremost, the biggest focus is making sure Joe D is healthy. He's got children. He's, you don't want that's the biggest concern is the health. You don't put football over family. But as far as what the Ravens are losing, after, like they said, first and foremost focus is health. But what they are losing is a really, really good coach, at least for now. We don't know how long he'll be out. Right now, it just said for a significant time is what coach said. And as you can see here, require ongoing treatment. So it's a loss because he's more than just the offensive line coach. He's heavily involved in game planning, in the scheme. He's involved in all of it when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. He's a huge part of their offensive system, and losing him will be a detriment to the team. There's just no doubt about it. Now, what do you got here, DK? Looks like a longer statement. Yeah, okay. Now, as a replacement feels like the wrong word, but as a stand-in for Joe D, as the new offensive line coach, at least how it is right now, is a guy named George Warhop, who I think was most recently the Texans offensive line coach. He has a long history with Coach Harbaugh, which should come as no surprise. But he is the current replacement, for lack of a better term. What's going on, Austin? Lisa Ann, appreciate you coming out. Oh, he better improve. Josh Johnson better improve. Mascala Controlla. Okay. What's going on, buddy? Appreciate you coming out. Don C. Appreciate it. Here's another statement. The Ravens did say that Coach D is widely respected and cherished in our organization. As he focuses on his health, we offer him unwavering support. In the interim, we welcome George Warhop to our coaching staff. With expertise in guiding top-level offensive linemen, his dedication and strong character will continue to develop our offensive line during Coach D's absence. So it doesn't seem like this is a situation where he's going to be forced into retirement, but at least it sounds like it's going to be an extended period of time. So we'll be rooting for him to get himself healthy and get back with the team, because I know the team's going to be missing him. But like Coach said, John Harbaugh mentioned, they're lucky to have a guy like Coach George Warhop available at this time. So at least in that regard, it seems like they got lucky to some degree. But what's going on, Jax? Tariq, what's going on? Appreciate it. Victoria, welcome back in as you've now become a mainstay. I love it. Adam, what's going on, buddy? Appreciate you coming out. But yeah, so big change there, in that he's been here such a long time, and he's obviously so beloved by the team. But let's hope he gets healthy and gets himself back out there. Also, in a bit of this one had a happy ending, but also quite scary when you see just the headline pop up if you were, seeing something on your phone here. But Mark Andrews was involved in a car crash. As you can see here in a statement again by the Ravens, says Mark Andrews was involved in a car accident while driving to the Under Armour Performance Center early Wednesday morning. Andrews was evaluated by medical staff at the Ravens training facility and did not sustain any apparent injuries. He later joined the team for morning meetings. Mark was originally scheduled for a non-practice day on Wednesday and is expected to return to practice in the coming days. This statement from Mark Andrews says, I appreciate everyone's thoughts and well wishes. This is a great reminder about the importance of wearing seatbelts and remaining alert while driving. So, yeah, Coach Harbaugh reiterated the seatbelt factor, and it kind of attributed that to the reason why Mark Andrews had no injuries. I will say, however, scheduled day off Wednesday, at least according to the statement, return to practice in the coming days. He did not practice today. So we don't, I mean, you know how it is with car accidents, man. Sometimes the adrenaline, sometimes things can, like a neck can stiffen up overnight. I know that I've never been in a severe car accident. I have hit someone. Okay. But I was never at all affected by it. And so I don't really know, but I've heard that sometimes those things can kind of creep up in the coming days, a stiff neck or back, something like that. So I'm assuming that maybe something creeped up and that's what's kept him out of practice on back-to-back days, unless they're just being ultra, conservative and trying to get this guy just making sure nothing's going on, and just, being a little bit cautious. So let's hope for the latter. And that, Mark Andrews says, man, it looks like he's primed to have a big, big season. In a season where I think he's kind of getting overlooked. It's funny. It's kind of fantasy season is rolling around this time of year, and I'm looking into all these guys, and there's these all these lists. The top guys. And then there's the sleeper list, the running back sleepers, the wide receiver. It's like I've seen Mark Andrews on some sleeper lists. It's like, what the hell is going on that Mark Andrews is somehow a sleeper at tight end? Blows my mind. But if anyone's sleeping on Mark Andrews in the I know I'm not, and I know if he's available, even if it is early on, I'll be happy to add him to my team. Touchdown machine, and yeah, I mean Isaiah's a good player too, but I expect both those guys to eat. And Mark Andrews' number one target until proven otherwise when he's healthy. Until proven otherwise, I'll say it. And I love me some Zay, both Zay Flowers and Zay Likely, but until proven otherwise, a healthy Mark Andrews is going to get the lion's share of the targets. Just point blank, period. Yes, likely is. You're right, Gideon. He is, and deservedly so. The guy's been absolutely going nuts. But yeah, good for Mark Andrews to wear a seatbelt, keep himself healthy. I'm going to try and get my pops to wear a seatbelt. It's tough. It's tough. And here's what I tell him. Here's what I tell him about the seatbelt. I go, let's just say, hypothetically, knock on wood, I hope to goodness this never were to happen. But let's just say he does get in an accident. Boom, through the windshield. Boom. And if you are severely hurt, I would hate to be my last moments going, why didn't I just wear my seatbelt? Now here I am. Look at me now. I'm bleeding all over myself. And I probably would have been okay sitting in that car over there as I'm looking back at it. I wouldn't want that to be my last moments. And I know there's, it's like choking. Like I always say, people say, what's the worst way? Burning, drowning. I'm like, choking's got to be up there because how embarrassing. Like your last moments of thought are, why didn't I chew this piece of steak? And then you're dead. And then the shame that your family has to go, well, he didn't chew his food. He choked on some food. And now, I think about these kinds of things. I go, oh, that would be so. I'd be like, lie. Don't tell him that's how I went. Shark attack. A horse bronco kicked me in the jaw piece. Something cooler than I just didn't chew my food. And now I'm not here anymore. I mean, that's just, yeah, like, dude, that chicken tender almost got me at our live show at the draft party. I almost aspirated some chicken tender and almost died in live TV. But yeah, so yeah, little things, seatbelts, chew your food. Don't make your last moments like, why didn't I just do something that simple that could have saved me? All right, but let's get into some more of the good news as we went to some bad news there. Let's go back to some good news. Man, it was exciting to see Nate Wiggins back out there. Nate Wiggins returned to practice, proving that, yes, he did avoid major injury after all the rumors of separated shoulder, torn pec, cracked collarbone. No, he is back. It was a simple sprain of the shoulder. And man, I am so thrilled because, again, ladies and gentlemen, of all the, I think it was all the first round. I think I misspoke initially, but all the first round picks, the highest graded rookie, ladies and gentlemen, week 1 of the preseason was Nate Wiggins. And it wasn't that close. So we need this guy. I mean, first of all, I love the fact that they went to him all those times. Like, I guarantee the coaches were like, thank you. Please throw at all our high pressure, young guys and rookies. Like run at Trenton Simpson because he's a starter and throw it at Wiggins and let's see what these guys got. I'll be interested to see what his participation level is like going forward in preseason games. Like, did we see the last of Nate Wiggins? Will we see, is he going to keep running out there, or are we going to see, a disappearance of him and guys like Trenton Simpson, guaranteed bona fide starters? Do they continue to get big time playing time? And it's funny because each team kind of views this differently. Like, I just read a report that the Chiefs, Andy Reid announced he intends to continue what he does, which is play his starters. And in fact, I think mentioned that Pat Mahomes and other key starters will be playing into the second quarter, or even longer, maybe even the whole first half. And that's, yeah, man. Yeah, make sure you got clean underwear on, Victoria says. Man, you don't know how true that is for me today. Let me tell you, your boy, look, you know what? I'm just going to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, story time. Your boy had a little bit of an accident today. Okay. I was at Arundel Mills Mall doing some shopping with the boy and the neighbor and her son and my wife. And, if you're familiar, Arundel Mills is a big mall. Okay. It's a huge mall. And I'm just walking, and it can be kind of crowded. Sometimes I'm walking. And I thought I had to pass gas. I thought I had a little flatulent, and I trusted that that's all it was. And it happened quick. Things developed very, very quickly. Okay, let me just say that. And I got very concerned because I was wearing shorts, and again, very quickly things developed. And I go, oh no! I'm looking around frantically, and I look over, and it was like heavenly lights shine down. I was right next to a bathroom, one of those little hallways. I go in there. Let's just say I went home today without any underwear on. Okay, those drawers did not leave the bathroom. Okay, yes, story time. I'm sorry. And when my son saw me come out of that stall and throw my underwear in the trash, he looked at me like, why? What just happened? You know what happened, son. Dad had an accident, okay? It's just strange because I haven't peed myself since I was a baby. But occasionally, every now and then, a great blue moon, the worst thing will happen. Mistakes were made, okay? I'm not looking for sympathy, okay? But it does help to talk about traumatic events. It does help get over things, And thank you guys for being a part of my therapy group. I appreciate it. Massey says, still not over championship game. Lamar era should have two Super Bowls by now. Wow. Okay. 2019 and this year, number 1 seed and clearly best team and home. What's expectations for next season? Well, there's only one. There can be only one expectation. That's the Super Bowl. I mean, there's no anything else would be backwards, right? I mean, at very least, Super Bowl appearance. I mean, Super Bowl win is always the goal, but anything below a Super Bowl appearance would be a step backwards. So for that reason, that is the expectation. And yeah, look, I think there's a lot of fans that are maybe still kind of trickling back to the football world after what they saw in championship game. It was rough. And then to see it, it's the Chiefs, that didn't help. And then the whole circus around the Chiefs with Kelsey and Swift, that I think rubbed a little bit of salt in the wound. So yeah, I don't blame you, Massey, but welcome back. I'm glad you're back. I can appreciate that the fandom just it took over for a little bit, but now I'm just catching up with all these. Okay. Yeah. But I'm excited and happy to announce and welcome in our next guest. Again, like I said, it's been kind of a long time coming, a guy we've been hoping to get on the show, and we've relied upon a lot of ways. The updates he keeps putting out on Twitter and other places like Baltimore Beatdown. So I want to welcome, or take no longer to welcome, our newest guest and hopefully a friend of the show, Kyle Barber. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And again, thank you in person for keeping us up to date. I follow you on Twitter and relay a lot of your messages to the fans, as well as your writings over at Baltimore Beatdown. So I definitely appreciate all that you do in keeping us Ravens fans up to date, sir.
No, it's my job, and I sure love doing it. So no problem on my end.
Awesome. Awesome. And thanks again for coming. I did want to get to start with the exciting news that Nate Wiggins is back at practice. I know a lot of Ravens fans we're awfully worried over the overnight where the tests were being taken place, and finally revealed that he was okay, and then ultimately back at practice today. What's your take on him and other presumed starters like Trenton Simpson and their participation from here on out, at least in the preseason games? Of course, they have to practice, but with the injury that was sustained in his final preseason play, do you expect to see Nate Wiggins or a guy like Trenton Simpson the remainder of the preseason?
I think we still see some of those, cusp starters or even real deal starters like Simpson on the field. I don't know so much about Wiggins in this game, just because he is coming off of injury, and and for 72 hours later after returning to practice to then go play in a preseason game, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think there's an unlikelihood that we see Wiggins specifically. But Simpson, they want to see him get a lot of reps. I think they want him to be involved. They want him to kind of continue a ramp up approach to being set and ready for the regular season, because week one is going to come quick, and it's not going to be a pleasant welcome to the NFL if you're not on your toes for Simpson, because your week one opponent is the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. So I think they want him prepped and ready to go and getting as many reps as possible, within reason, of course, on that. As for some other guys like offensive line, I think there's a real opportunity to see some starters across the offensive line, as they want to get these guys prepped and ready. They want to be able to see who can stand out when it's, live rounds with the offensive line, when you have to make room for the likes of Derrick Henry and Justice Hill, though those guys I don't expect to be on the field. They want their pass protection to be in sync when they have to do the job for Lamar Jackson, stuff like that. So yes, there's going to be guys held out for sure. They don't want any of their most impactful players on the field, and they're going to do some injury risk mitigation with keeping those guys out. But some of those younger talents, you need them to get real reps and be prepared for the regular season.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. I know some fans. I know Brad, even our intern Brad, is, I've seen enough from all the starters. We got a 90-man roster, 44 guys sit. You can let the fringe guys fight it out, and then we got plenty of guys. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to see a little bit more Trenton Simpson, even though I was impressed with what I did see. Back to the offensive line, Jimmy, my normal co-host here, who's just traveling right now, is a big fan of Falele, and when he gets to be a fan of a guy, it's hard for him to let him go, or just to not. He starts to fall in love with a guy, and he doesn't always see the negatives in people. And I know that a lot of the writers that, guys that I've spoken to out at camp, they have their doubts on whether Falele can be a starter in this league, certainly a guard. So let me ask you this. It's kind of a two-part. Do you believe in Falele? Because he's still out there. This isn't like a gimmick. Like, they're giving him so much time to try and see if he can do it. Do you look at him as that he's the leader in the clubhouse at right guard? And how much did the Linderbaum injury and forcing Cleveland to take over at center change their, because I always looked at it like they're going to see what they got in Falele, but ultimately they know Cleveland can go at right guard, and they kind of know what they got with him. But now with Linderbaum out, does it kind of force more onto Falele's shoulders?
I'll answer the second part first, which I don't believe the injury to Tyler Linderbaum had any impact in their interest of Fa'alele at right guard. Ben Cleveland has been working primarily prior to the injury, not at right guard either. He was working more in second team stuff at center and doing some other spot starts and reps elsewhere. So I don't think that really had an impact on him, especially because with Linderbaum out, they've rotated centers. So, and they've rotated with right tackle. They put McCary at center at times. They've had Ben Cleveland at center. Darian Dalcourt's been at center. The undrafted player out of Alabama, and then at right tackle they've had McCary and they've had Roger Rosengarten, as a rotational options. So that's what I've seen out of that. So it did not impact Fa'alele's participation at right guard. Do I believe in him? I think he has a ways to go, but it's really hard to not see the traits you want when you watch a guy this big, this strong, this powerful, and this agile at that size. Now, is he an agile person, just across the board? Not as much, but for a guy that's 380 pounds, of course you can see his agility for being that big, which is its own effect. I talked to Fa'alele, a couple weeks into camp about this change, and he continually repeated about how fast play is made at the inside. Everybody moves quicker inside. He has, faster assignments. He has to get off the ball quicker. And I think that's been his greatest challenge so far. It's tough, but can he do it? I think you'd like to see it. And he's been inconsistent with it. There are some plays that he can pull around and he can make a seal and he can get there. And when a 380-pound guy, levels aside and allows for a gap to be on the left run, when he pulls on that, you can see a 9-yard gain and you go, of course this guy is capable of this. But you see other plays where he's not out of his stance fast enough. His hand placement isn't where you would like it to be, so he can make a block or be able to shed a twist and be able to pass off a pass rusher while the other guy loops back in the inside. So there's some challenges there with Fa'alele. I think it's really tough to not consider maybe going with a veteran outside option, a guy that hasn't been here yet. I don't know if they've necessarily settled on Fa'alele as their starting right guard. I think they really like him, but I think they want to see more of him.
Yeah, it's a lot of people are like, why didn't they just keep Zeitler? And I guess the question is, if they would have kept Zeitler, does that mean like no Derrick Henry? Is that the corresponding move? And I think that's when Ravens fans go, well, then I don't know if I want to sacrifice Henry for Zeitler. But man, it just seems like you'd feel so much more comfortable if Zeitler was still here.
Well, with Zeitler, he was owed a fair amount of money. He's been starting to get a bit more banged up. Mm-hmm. And I think the Ravens want to be a team that gets out a year early before a year too late. That's always a bit of a concern with some teams, that you hang on to a guy a little bit too long and you're eating away at cap money that you don't really have. And they may have considered that as a possible reason as to why they wanted to maybe move on from him. And we'll see this year if that maybe was the thought process. See if his performance is still at a sturdy level. I don't necessarily think that it's either you get Derrick Henry or you get Kevin Zeitler. I don't think that's necessarily the corresponding financial reasons, but they also, at some point you have to try and trust and develop your talent that you've drafted, that you've worked out, that you've helped to work into a greater role. And the Ravens have been so successful in doing so that you can make that jump with your younger guys. Yeah. You have to be able to have that financial flexibility. I mean, you're paying a quarterback, you're paying some top end guys, you have a lot of blue chip talent on the roster. You have to get cheap, productive talent somewhere on this roster because more big contracts are coming down the pike. You got Odafe Owe, who you just took his 5th-year option. Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum's deals are looming. some of that younger guys, some of those younger guys that you've drafted are what you're going to need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just hope they're ready for it. Let's just hope this is a big year for the Ravens. Let's hope the offensive line isn't the thing that keeps, kind of holds them back. I also want to get your take on Josh Johnson and the entire quarterback room outside of Lamar Jackson. Josh Johnson goes 4 of 12 for 62 yards. Devin Leary 6 of 10 for 37 yards. I know that Coach Harbaugh mentioned there was maybe some pass catchers not running the correct routes, and that caused some of the issues with Josh Johnson when he was in there. But it's got a lot of Ravens fans concerned that if Lamar were to be forced to miss 3 or 4 games at some point in the middle of the season, there's questions if Josh Johnson gives them a legitimate shot to win, half of those games. And I know that some people are wishing that Tyler Huntley was still here, and others say, I saw enough with that fumble. I'm done with Tyler Huntley. But what's your take? I think Tannehill is too expensive, even though some fans are hoping for. Quarterbacks are just so daggone pricey. Is there any other options, or is Josh Johnson and Devin Leary kind of what they're going to have?
The Ravens have a lot of faith in Josh Johnson. Yeah, the preseason game didn't go to expectation. It sounded like, as Harbaugh stated, that a few miscommunications with his receivers were part of the reason for the lack of production on the field on Friday. I think also they're not having their stars out there, which is always a bit of a thing we forget in preseason games. And I know it's not, it's 2s against 2s and 3s against 3s at times. And you forget that in a scenario where Lamar Jackson goes down, he's not throwing to Mike Riggerman and Riley Sharp, and Dayton Wade. He'll be throwing and working with Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and they tend to, 1, run the right routes, 2, have something you can lean on as that scenario. It hasn't been the best camp for Josh Johnson. I think everybody can tell you that fairly, that he would have probably liked to have had a better performance in camp so far. It's hard to say that if Lamar Jackson goes down, how competitive can this roster be over 3 to 4 games? I think you can lean on your playmakers. I think you can lean on the defense. Mm-hmm. You don't need a quarterback to heroically bail you out, but it's tough to not hope and expect a little bit better of performances. Maybe that's what comes on Saturday against the Falcons is a performance that Josh Johnson can better hang his hat on and build up some positivity, because I think it's been a bit excessive on just the criticism, but his play is ultimately what people judge their takes on. And his camp hasn't been the most productive. In the first preseason game was just really, really poor, and you would have liked to see more out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, especially from a guy who's got 10 years of quarterbacking, even though not a ton of starts, but 10 years of professional experience. Now, I was really encouraged from what I saw from Owen Wright and really Rasheen Ali. Both those guys, I thought I saw something from. But I must admit, even though Owen Wright isn't the draft pick this year, he's an undrafted guy from last year. I liked what I saw to Owen Wright, and I want to see more of it. I know we got way more snaps from Rasheen Ali in the first week than we did from Owen, and I kind of would like to see that flipped a little bit. I want to see a little bit more from Owen, averaging 4.7 a carry, had the 17-yard reception out of the backfield, and I like Rasheen looked like he almost popped one on the kick return, and like I said, I like what I've seen from both. But what's your take on those two guys and how much they can contribute? And does Owen Wright have any realistic chance of making the roster when Rasheen Ali is this year's draft pick?
I think it's tough for Owen Wright to make the roster, but it is not out of the question for me. I think he's very talented. I think he has shown more on a day-to-day basis than Rasheen Ali in training camp. If both of these guys were draft picks or both of them were UDFAs, Owen Wright would be much further ahead, but there is the necessary value of Ali being a draft pick, whereas Owen Wright is was spent the last year on their practice squad, so that comes with its own context of he could be a little bit further ahead than Ali because he's had a year in this system, so that's part of the process there. Overall, I think that there's a real opportunity for Wright to continue to make a name for himself, and that's in preseason. That's with this game that's pending, Saturday. So it's going to be still an uphill climb, but if injuries occur, if anything, and I'm not even specifically at the running back position, just the more injuries on a roster, the more possibility of guys that are 54 and 55, 56 on a 53-man projected roster can suddenly slot into that initial roster if so were to occur. If not, the Ravens have seen numerous guys leave their cuts and then land on a different roster elsewhere and start to make plays all across the NFL. I think Wright is a capable NFL running back. He would be number 3 on this roster. I think there's a shot that he makes it. But as you pointed out, he has to contend with a guy that is a draft pick, and that's a little bit tougher just on merit more than your play or production.
Yeah, it's a tough uphill climb, but I'll be rooting for him. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think Ali would be. It's unreasonable to think Ali could get through waivers and still make it to the practice squad if that's his go. Ultimately where he ends up, but we'll wait and see. Now, I want to get your take on the outside linebacker position. I think this is the group that has still some Ravens fans most concerned with Jadeveon Clowney leaving, and really now the Ravens relying on Odafe Owe to be the guy, with KBN as kind of his number 2, and who knows what you're going to get from David Ojabo. We have a bet on this show right now, and I am the camp of I am optimistic of Odafe Owe. I think he gets double-digit sacks this year, and if he does not, I have to run a 5K because Jimmy is a competitive runner and runs big marathon. He's crazy. I don't. So now if I lose, I got to run a 5. I got to train for and perform in a 5K. But he's also vegan and very clean eater. So if Odafe does get it, he has to eat a Wendy's Baconator on this show. And so, yeah, I know. I can't believe he agreed to it. This guy has not eaten a burger in years. So,
oh my goodness,
what's your take on who do you put the odds on favorite to win the bet? Am I running a 5K or is Jimmy eating a Baconator?
That's tough. I think, if I'm setting the line for what I expect out of David Ojabo this season.
No, Odafe Owe.
Yes, Odafe Owe. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yep. Wrong name. Yeah. Odafe Owe, 17 games. Mm-hmm. I'd probably set the line at 8.5 sacks. I think that's good. That's a good line. That's not a great one, but you'd like to see more out of your pass rusher. It's tough. This is a guy that could easily get 12. I really do think so. He's a guy that could also just get 8. It all depends on, there's a little bit of luck in football. There's a little bit of luck in all of sports. There's a bit of a fortune. If a quarterback takes an extra step to the left as there's interior pressure, he's trying to get away from Justin Madubuike. If he escapes left and goes into Owe instead of right to Kyle Van Noy, that's the difference. There's a half step difference between, he probably missed 6-7 sacks. I think it was, Chuck Smith was talking about it earlier in the week when we asked about Owe, and that he missed 5, 6, 7 sacks. Just by a half step, it felt like at times. So this is a guy that has the capability of being a double-digit sack guy, but the NFL, it's tough to get those unless you are just among the elites in pass rush productivity. Like, unfortunately, what every other AFC North team somehow has landed in Watt, Garrett, Hendrickson, it's aggravating, honestly, to see all of them have such joy with those guys. I think you might be running a 5K, which is not hard at all. By the way, it is only 3. Like, I know it sounds intimidating. It's 3.1 miles. All right, and I know that you said like you're not trained up or anything, but like I think you can run a 5K. But I also think that's pretty cold blooded for you to be like, hey, you have
Dude,
to eat a Baconator
I didn't bring
on
this
this
up.
show.
Look.
That's like my best friend is vegan, has been vegan for nearly a decade now, and
Yeah.
I've never been cold blooded enough to be like, hey man, Jake, you lose this bet, you got to eat pepperoni rolls from old Chicago. All right, and I got to record you doing them, which are like his favorite food that he misses.
Well, there you go. It'd be a
I've
win-win.
and he's still like, no, there's no chance. Like, I can't do it. Like, he has I don't know what his belief system is on why he's vegan. If it's just
It's
health
health.
based, or
Just
if it's
health.
yeah, that's how his started out, and then
Yeah.
changed up, and now he's like, I kind of feel like this is something that I respect, like work, going through that. That's a little cold blooded. That's all I'm saying.
I will
But
say
there is
this.
a shot that you don't have to run a 5K. I definitely think
Okay.
it's closer than maybe I'm giving credit for. I think I might have a bit more of a. I don't like to be a pessimist about things. I do try to be real. Like, it's going to be hard to see Owe go from what do you have, five sacks,
5.5.
five
Yeah.
to doubling that. Like, that is challenging to do as a player. But he's going to suddenly get another 250, 300 snaps. And last year he had the same amount of pressure, but it was on 100 fewer snaps than he had the year before. So he has the ability. I am a big believer in Odafe Owe, and the fact that, like, I love watching him practice. He makes so many plays that I almost feel at times that I go like, here we go again, like another great camp. Let's see it. Like, I can't wait to write about him do it this season. I enjoy watching him play. I enjoy him as a person. He's very respectful in media. He gives you the time of day at media availabilities and locker room and stuff. He's never been disrespectful or anything. Not that a whole lot of guys really have been in my tenure covering the Ravens, but he's a guy that I really like to root for. So, I would set the line, like I said, around 8.5. It's tough to double your sack totals. I know Justin Madubuike apparently can do it every single year, but we'll see if Owe can fall in that suit. It's going to be close. You might be halfway through ordering a Baconator at game 17, and then he puts up like a 2-3 sack game, and suddenly you're eating that Baconator because you got a carbo load before a run.
It's funny. I did not bring up the Baconator because I didn't think there was any chance in hell he would agree to that. DK in the window and producer, he brought it up, and he surprisingly agreed to it. But I gotta say, Jimmy's motivation for me to run is because he wants me to be healthier. And my sick ass, but I just want to. I mean, yeah, it's
you're just sabotaging your friend. You're like, oh,
yeah, that's kind of
how dare you care for me? I would like you to be dragged down to my level.
That's right. Misery loves company, Kyle. There's no doubt about it. And I'm no better. Okay, I am no better than anyone else. I do want to get your take on Rashad Bateman, because when I saw Gage get signed and added to the team, it's funny. I was at practice that day and I said, "Who's that? Number 6, is that Bo Bray just catching a touchdown in the left corner? What is going on?" Only to find out that Gage had just been added that morning. I looked at that as a sign, and now maybe I'm wrong, and I got a feeling you're going to tell me I'm wrong, Kyle, but I looked at it as a sign of the Ravens' lack of confidence that they can count on Rashad Bateman to be out there in game day. Am I crazy?
Yeah, that's not it.
I knew
that's
you were
not
going to
it.
say that, Kyle.
That's not it. That's not it. The Ravens have look at every transcript question that Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta, and teammates have said over the last year since the end of last season regarding Rashad Bateman. It is not anything other than we have faith, we have confidence, we need to get him the ball more, we need to incorporate him more in the offense. It is not, hey, 2+ weeks of training camp have come by and suddenly Rashad Bateman isn't it. Let's go pick up Russell Gage as our new as a real deal option for this offense. I don't think that's it. In the slide, Harbaugh was asked about
it's much
adding
more than just camp, right? Last year, his whole career.
I mean, that's not been to that effect. And last year, that with the new offense and things, and he's been banged up off and on. I don't think that it's about anything other than Harbaugh likened it to just playing your options. Hey, there's some veterans on the market. I think they haven't been impressed too much with, the young receivers on the roster through camp so far. It doesn't seem like anybody's really pushing for a roster spot. You can read my coverage and everybody else's, and you're not really going, man, like Dayton Wade really is making the case for himself. He had some good days of practice, but his preseason game wasn't really all that impressive. He had a tough drop. It was a rookie drop. Maybe I haven't seen anybody pushing to make, Tylan Wallace's job, challenging or his roster spot in danger. And that was a guy that, the Ravens could realistically see as an option to part ways with if another guy can step up, because he only has, I believe, like 7 career catches in the NFL with the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
He is a special teams guy, and somebody else could learn to play special teams. That was a guy that could have been at risk entering training camp, and I don't think they have been since. They wanted to bring in these veteran guys just for the sake of, hey, why not? Let's take a shot, see if these guys got anything. If they do, maybe they can get two game tapes out of this, and maybe to establish a connection. That's another reason that some of these teams do these things is you bring a guy in, you sign him for a couple weeks of training camp. They impress you, they don't impress you, whatever so be. But you have a connection that if Nelson Aguilar goes down, if Tylan Wallace goes down, or if anybody like Zay or Rashad Bateman go down, you can have them as your first call. You have already a relationship with that team, and you make that connection. There's another reason why you have that kind of signing like they did. It's not because Rashad Bateman is not to be trusted by the organization.
I don't think so. Okay. All right. Mate. I see certainly the back end receivers, like you said, aren't really pushing, because when the camp open, it's like, well, Zay's making the team, Bateman's making the team, Aguilar's making the team, Tez is here, Ty's here. That's 5. They keep at most 6. So all these other guys are competing for one spot. And so when I see Russell, but you're right. I mean, I haven't seen a lot from Tez. I mean, Kirkwood's had some moments. Dayton Wade, he did lead the team in catches and yards, but did have the drop where he turned his head a little bit early, started looking upfield.
Yep.
But okay, let's see. Let's kind of wait and see. Now, last question for me is about the safety group. I've been so impressed with this group of safeties from top to bottom. I mean, Sanusi Kane looked like a star in the making, at least as a gunner on special teams. This guy was making tackle after tackle in the open field, and then popping guys even on the defensive side. And then Bo Braid. I mean, I'm a Maryland Terp guy, so I've been, of course, hype about Bo Braid, but he's only proved me to look a lot smarter than I actually am. He's looked phenomenal. He's getting his hand on balls in practice, hitting guys in the preseason game. And then when we know what we have at the top end of that group, I mean, how hard is it going to be to I mean, where do these guys fit in on this roster when you have 3 top end safeties that we all know aren't going anywhere? And then you have our Darius Washington, who I know is kind of a DB more than he is a safety. But like all these good players, there's only so many roster spots, Kyle. How does this shake out?
My projection right now before the last 2 preseason games is Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, and that, those are the locks, stone cold locks of the century.
Of course.
And then afterwards, you have to look at Darius Washington. That's the guy that I think makes it.
Yeah.
I think they like him more as just a nickel more than a safety. It's really tough to have a guy his size as your back end kind of player. I know he plays bigger than that, so you got to give him credit there. But I think that's the guy I think that makes the roster, especially with just kind of the injury stuff going on right now. So that's a little bit tough. With like Arthur Millette, I think his injury really opened up the door for Washington and some others to really make a case for themselves on this. I think Braid, it's really tough for him to make the roster. I think he's certainly a guy that could be a practice squad consideration, but I think the Ravens want to have Sanusi Kane on this roster. I think he's good enough to be on this roster. He was on my projection. You could probably get away with cutting him and having him on your practice squad, Sanusi Kane, because he's not a guy that went to the combine, and so teams don't have a whole lot of experience.
I remember that he was when he was drafted.
and
So who
name,
is this guy?
yeah, he didn't have any real name recognition coming out of the draft. He's a late draft pick, 7th round draft pick, and it's not like teams are going to be gunning straight for him. So that's the calculus on if he can make the roster. Is what if the Ravens just kind of want to cut him, re-sign him to the waivers? Do they want to take that risk, or do they think that's not going to work? So I think you keep 4. You got the 3. I think you keep Sanusi Kane. Darius Washington more counts as a nickel corner than a safety. So if you want me to just stick titling him as a safety, then I think they keep 5. I think that's how it goes. I think they keep Washington. I think they keep Kane as the 2 non-star named guys there. Braid has a chance to make a practice squad, but how many practice squads do you like? How many of a position do you want on your practice squad when you have 5 safeties already on your roster, which is a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and when you come down to it, I don't know a lot of teams that are hanging on to 5 safeties as a chance, but as the NFL kind of is enjoying more, 2 safety coverages and using more two guys back. Some teams are using 3 safety looks. Obviously, we've seen what we did last year with McDonald, who's probably going to be installing something of a version of that in Seattle, and some other teams are really starting to hone in on that kind of that play. Like if you have that kind of talent, you can do it. So overall, I think it's 5. I think Braid is the odd man out, of course, in that scenario. He had an uphill battle to begin with. Let's be real here, because
sure.
he had 2 spots to contend with automatically that were wiped away, and then they signed Eddie Jackson. All of a sudden, that really kills any real momentum that any of those guys competing for a roster spot had at that number 3 spot.
Yeah, like you said, Darius playing the way he is. Pepe even playing, like you said, bigger than they are. Hitting guys at their size has been impressive. And hey, I'll be rooting for Bo Braid if he's not here, because like you said, I mean, that's a lot of. I mean, he's a good enough football player, and hopefully they just go for who's the best. But that's an awful lot of safeties on one team to add to the practice, add another to the practice squad. But I'll be rooting for Bo wherever he ends up. I think he's at least proven that he needs more looks and could maybe make himself into a player. What do you got here, DK? I see you have a super chat here, and then we'll let Kyle get out of here. Appreciate Kyle's time. Guys, if you want to follow Kyle's writings over at Baltimore Beatdown, please do so. His camp observations have really kept me up to date and kept you guys up to date. So make sure you guys go over there and check out his writing. Massey says, he meant Kyle. He said Carl. Kyle and Glenn, which suckbag team from last season do you expect to be good? I'm scared of the New York Jets. They look so – I mean, they've got to be the darlings, right? Because if Aaron Rodgers is anything like himself, then they have a monster roster. Maybe the best – at least some people are putting Breece Hall above Christian McCaffrey in their fantasy rankings. Any other teams that maybe Massey's missing here other than the Jets here, Kyle?
I mean, that's really who you got to go with are the New York Jets. You can argue, in division, the Steelers or Browns, just because it's so hard to just have any teams in the Ravens division just be poor for an extended period of time. There's just so much talent on every one of those rosters. The Browns have such a talented defensive core. The Steelers are forever and always going to win be 500 plus in their performances. They added Russell Wilson on essentially a minimum deal, and they got Justin Fields as a curious backup scenario thing that they're dealing with. The Bengals won't be as I don't think they'll be some titans of industry like some people make them out to be, but I don't think they will be too bad. I mean, their defense took a few big hits in the offseason, but it's not like those teams are ever going to really go away, just because there's so much talent on every team in this division. And I know none of them you can really qualify as, I'll use the term, suck bags.
How about the Bears, though? I mean, the Bears might be.
I think the Falcons are another. I was focusing more AFC East. It's not AFC East, it's just AFC. But like the Falcons in the last 2 days have added Matt Judon and Justin Simmons, and those are two high caliber talents that I think every Ravens fan wanted on the Ravens. I would have loved to see Justin Simmons on this defensive unit. That's the guy that I was like, it makes no sense. It's out of the question financially. That's the guy I want. I want that guy. I like that's the guy I'll slam the pretend table for, just for the case of how fun it would be to watch Hamilton, Marcus Williams, and Justin Simmons in the backfield. And then you have Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, Nate Wiggins, Arthur Millette, Ardarius Washington as your defensive. It's just stupid. That secondary is ridiculous. It still is right now with Eddie Jackson, but it would, Justin Simmons is one of the best safeties in the NFL right now. So I think the Falcons are a possibility of that.
Yeah, and that's a really good call, especially with Kirk Cousins if he's back with the knee. I mean, I know that there's some question marks on whether, or in the Achilles. I'm sorry, there's some question marks on whether he can bounce back that quickly, but we'll see. But Kyle, thank you so much. It's been a long time coming. I appreciate you joining us, and hopefully, we'll be talking as the season unfolds. And Kyle, if you want to give them let the people know where they can follow you and find all your stuff.
Yeah, you can check out my work over at BaltimoreBeatdown.com, where I'm the managing editor and beat writer. I have an awesome staff, from my editors to contributors. I'm really proud of the coverage we produce on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis. Our coverage that spans from detailing practice that I'm fortunate enough to do to long-form, bigger pieces on players, on how the Ravens operate, all of the above. I'm really excited about the pending season. I really am. And we'll see just how this unfolds with an exciting roster. You can check out my work also, just my coverage details on Twitter, from tweeting out absences and practice stuff on a day-to-day basis. You can check that out at Kyle P. Barber on Twitter. And I also do write for BaltimoreRavens.com. Every Monday and post-game edition of their Late for Work series is written by me. So make sure to go check that out under the Late for Work tab on BaltimoreRavens.com. Glenn, I appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely.
This is fun. I'm not going to say that I wasn't a little bit concerned when the story preceding my arrival was what it was.
It was honesty time.
While I was sitting in the studio, and I went, "This is quite the pre-introduction for me." But
an open book here.
We got here. We made it. I had a great time with you.
Good.
Thank you very much. I thought the questions were exceptional, and I'm excited for this second training camp, and I'd be happy to join once more.
Absolutely.
And we'll see how things go.
I look forward to it next time. Thanks, Kyle. Have a good night and enjoy the preseason. That was fun, man. That was fun. New face of the show, and I thought he did a good job. The story was. Look, I'm an open book. I'm not a secretive guy. Okay, it helps me to talk about things. And that was a pretty insane moment earlier this morning. Just trying to do some school shop. Back to school. You get me a pair of sneakers, maybe, and then that happens. I had to pull my shorts tight to make sure nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole thing. The show is my therapy. There's no doubt. Now, I know there was a couple other super chats. I think there was one. Here we go. Adit says, Glenn, appreciate your generosity, Adit, as well as Massey earlier with his super chats. Adit says, Glenn, which Orioles would make a good football player and vice versa? I would go Kyle as a center fielder and Felix as a tackle. 6'8". Yeah, that's put some meat on it. Get him to eat go to a couple buffets. Then, he could probably pull off being a tackle. He'd be an athletic tackle. I can guarantee you that. Kyle Hamilton would be absolutely I think Gunnar is he looks kind of similar built to Kyle Hamilton. Very similar. Tall guy, slender, super fit. I think he'd be good. I think Adley Rutschman, put him at linebacker. Woo! Put that guy at outside linebacker. Let him go get your quarterback. I think he'd be in good shape. I've seen Lamar. I would have said Lamar because he throws the ball, but I've seen him throw a baseball, and it just blows my mind every time when I see these guys who are high-level athletes play a different sport, especially when it like C.J. Stroud threw a baseball. It did not look good. It's like he's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the world. It's a mess. So it doesn't always translate. And I will say this, baseball is a skill sport. You can't just be naturally athletic and go hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Whereas in some sports, you can just be a freak athlete, pick up a football, and you can make some guys miss and score a touchdown. But not baseball. Go ask Deion Sanders what's a harder sport. Because he said it many times. Baseball, hitting that 95-mile-an-hour, and nowadays it's more like a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Certainly everyone out of the bullpen is throwing 100. It is. That's right. Adley was a punter. That's a good point, Deadly Jordan. I forgot about that. He was the punter of his college, not just like some low level. No, he was a punter, but he's a big boy. Like, I'm sure. Oh, there we go. James McCann. My man had a baseball break his nose from the side, and he finished the game. It happened in the first inning. He finished the game just trickling. It would look like 2 tampons up his nose. Yes, I know it's not pronounced that way. If you've seen the movie, you'll get why I said tampon. Yes, Victoria, I should have listened to your father's advice. And I just knew it was I was fine. I was like, this is nothing. But I was wrong. But no, I would say Gunner switched to football as a safety, Adley as a linebacker, and then on the other side, Kyle Hamilton, I think will be a fantastic baseball player. No doubt. Who else would be good? Let me see. I bet Marlon Humphrey would be a really good baseball player. He's a multi-sport athlete growing up. But yeah, let's see here. Now, I'm not going to need to prepare for the 5K run. Look, Kyle said it himself. He had 5 sacks last year, and he even said he missed out on 6 or 7. This year, he's going to have 250 to 300 more snaps than he had last year. So even if he doesn't pick up those 6 or 7 that he barely missed, and that gets him to double digits, I think he's going to run into a few with those extra 250 to 300 snaps. I got to think. But John, to your point, the worst thing that can happen is I just get a little healthier, which I need to. I used to be an athlete. Not anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not anymore. I've embraced dad bod to the fullest, and I need to step it up. Hey, Don C., I will say this. I was glad I was wearing black socks in the moment, because if you don't want to be wearing white socks, if you have that kind of accident, okay? Because it's just, it's not, it was not good. And I was wearing brown short, light khaki brown, light brown, okay? Don C., with the more gifted memberships, the legend continues to grow. Appreciate your generosity, Don C. You are the man. I really do appreciate it. But guys, this Saturday, the game, and look, I know a lot of people were saying, hey, Matt Judon is coming to Baltimore in a Falcons uniform on Saturday. So we will be taking on a really talented, I think, roster, a roster that's gotten a lot better since last year. And it'll be exciting to see how this game unfolds this weekend. We will, of course, be on Saturday for a post-game show, and absolutely can't wait to continue to break down. Make sure you guys go on to, if you are a YouTube member, if you are newly gifted YouTube member, check out the YouTube membership advantages and what all it has to offer, because we have our pre-show discussions, which honestly, DK, I hope you're like remembering if I say something crazy on these pre-show, because sometimes I'll forget you're recording our pre-show discussions and I'll say some wild, although I did just tell a pretty ridiculous story here on live. So I don't know what else that I'd really want you to hide or edit out, because that's as ridiculous as it gets. But check out our membership advantages, and check out the pre-show discussions. DK and Brad just put up another installation of their the DK and Brad show, which I think was very entertaining. Brad made he was going down the road of making a very compelling case for all 44 guaranteed roster spots, which I think we could all come up with 44 guys out of the 53 right now, 44 to 46. We got 90 guys. He said, I don't need any of those 44 to play a snap in the preseason. Let's use the guys who are competing for those last 9 or 10 spots and the remaining 40 guys on the roster and play it out that way. But then he messed up, because then he said, I'll even be fine just starting 0-1 and letting that rusty but being a healthy 0-1. And that's where he lost me. Okay. Because look, there's no guarantee if you sit them all preseason, they're not going to get hurt and crazy hurt in week 1. Like, there's no guarantee. So, and by the way, I'm not willing to just lay down and give up a loss at any point in the season, even if it is week 1. So while I get his point, and to some degree I agree, I'm not just going to go, I'm okay with starting 0-1. But anyway, check out the Brad and DK show. Don C hyping it up. He's loving it. And I think it's a really great addition to the channel. So check that out in our memberships. Make sure you're back here for our post-game show on Saturday. That's it for us tonight. If you enjoyed the stream, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and we will keep you up to date on all your Ravens news. Have a good night.